Ladies and gentlemen, what can you possibly say? The man himself, UNICEF Ambassador Sir Roger Moore. Sir Roger. And his lovely wife just keeping an eye to make sure he doesn't do anything wrong. Right there, Sir Roger. Now, this is a very, very rare occasion. As you can really imagine, I do have to say, Sir Roger, that this isn't an official. You're not here as a lecturer. Sir Roger is here on vacation. He has given his time more than willingly just to answer any questions you may have. He is more than happy to do so, but he's on vacation, so this is an absolute honor. We do ask for the duration of the question and answer, maybe half an hour or so. If you could please refrain for a while from your flash photography, there will be lots and lots of opportunity at the end of this for you to take your photos and have your photo taken. More about that in a while. But just so we don't have all these flashes in our eyes. And you will, of course, have more than enough opportunity to ask any questions. We do have people wandering around with microphones for you. Before we go, this is a bit like This Is Your Life, isn't it?
Can I have a question?
Oh dear, come on then, Sir Roger. I dread to think.
Well, the first question is, why is this water?
I asked for... Oh. You got me there. We don't have a budget. That's what it is. We were going to bill it to your room, but then we decided not to. An extraordinary career, if you don't mind me saying so. Extraordinary career, beginning, it says here in my copious notes, which I got from Wikipedia, so it must be true, 1945 as an extra in some old movies. Can you remember that far?
I can remember much further back than that. I remember when your grandfather was a boy.
My grandmother told me about that, yes, that wasn't good.
Yeah, no, I first started in 1944. In a play at the, where the hell was it? The Arts Theatre in London.
Oh, yes.
A play was called, you see, what I have is this thing that happens when you reach a certain age. And I do take pills for it.
Are they little and blue?
No.
I just thought I'd ask.
That's a hard question.
It gets harder. I suppose I asked for that.
Well, but
sharp as a button.
I've got to remember the name of the pill because it's those little white flowers you find in the garden.
Primrose. Daisies.
Daisy. What's the name of the pills the doctor?
Oh. I walked into that one as well.
Yeah, the old ones are the best.
Oh, no, they're not.
I try to tell the young ladies.
When I told my mother, my parents were hugely excited, as I'm sure all of we are, that you were coming on and I had an opportunity to talk to you. Most people, as I'm sure you know, talk the Saint or... my mother said, oh, he used to be a model for a knitwear company. Is that true?
No, I did some modelling photographs for knitting patterns. I can still drop one pearl, one plane.
We may have a knitting class with Sir Roger on our CD. That would be great. Of course, you've had a long and varied career. I go back as far as Ivanhoe. Anyone remember Ivanhoe? Yeah. Huge in the UK, I'm sure in the US as well. Was that kind of an iconic role at your beginning of your career?
Well, it actually was. I'd made a few movies in Hollywood at that point. And they discovered on my last picture at MGM, I was under contract there, that I wasn't any good. And so I went back to England and I was offered a television series, Ivanhoe, 39 episodes, 39 half-hour episodes. I got to wear lovely armour and ride around on a horse and wave swords.
Sounds idyllic.
It was lovely.
Actually, you did mention MGM. I have a quote here. This is allegedly from you. This is one of your quotes. Sir Roger said, at MGM, RGM was MBG. Do you remember saying that?
No.
It was an awful long time ago, which you said in your autobiography was, at MGM, Roger George Moore was no bloody good.
That's absolutely true.
So MGM wasn't your cup of tea?
Well, it was very nice. It was lovely being under contract there and getting paid every week. But the minute an actor is paid every week, he starts hating the front office. And so you resent everything. You know, I didn't resent. The last film I did, there was a film called Diane with Lana Turner. And it was my first really starring role. And Lana was absolutely lovely. She taught me how to kiss.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. No,
all eyes on the missus?
Excuse me, darling. No, the film Diane was about Henry II of France, Henri Triste, and his lover was Diane de Poitiers. Or she became his lover because his father, Francois Prime of France, had said, teach my loutish son, who only likes to wrestle, how to dance, how to read poetry, and be a gentleman. So she takes me in hand, no pun intended, and my father dies, which means that this young prince is going to become king. And it's moonlit on the stage 12 at MGM. And on what is a balcony with moonlight, I say to Lana, "You made me a prince, now make me a king." And then I dived on her throat. And Lana goes, oh, Roger, please. And the director says, cut, what's wrong, Lana? And she said, Roger, you're a great kisser, but when a lady gets over 35, you have to watch the neck. So would you put all the passion without so much pressure? So I've never used pressure. Have I, darling?
Yeah. Again, all eyes turn your way. Of course, my generation, and I'm sure all of our guests here, certainly the British guests, remember you from 1962, was it, when you started the I think, role of roles, the Saint? Bing, exactly.
Yes. All this was such a long time ago. But, then, I was the famous, are you the famous Simon Templar? Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da. And so I get to say, my name is Templar, Simon Templar. And then I got to say my name was, what was it? Lord Sinclair, Brett Sinclair, Lord to you. And then it became, my name is Bond, James. And that's about the only thing I ever said in Bond. I really, it was so easy learning the lines because, and I used to get bored with it and sort of say, well, the name's Bond, Brooke Bond, or Mary Bond, or June Bond.
You must have had great fun doing those roles as Bond.
Oh, riot, absolutely wonderful. No, really, really good fun.
It looked, certainly for us as a moviegoer, it looked, as you at one stage said, a very tongue-in-cheek kind of role.
Well, I don't believe in that type of hero, that type of spy, because how can you be a spy? A spy is somebody anonymous, you don't recognize him, you don't know him, but not our Jim. He walks into a bar, Mr. Bond, martini shaken, not stirred. So it's always Mr. Bond, Mr. Bond. They know him.
Everyone knows who you are as a secret spy. That's a good thing.
So he ain't a spy.
I can see the point. It also says in your autobiography, which I'm sure you remember writing, you had to lose lots of weight to be cast as Bond. I don't remember you as a bit of a porky chap, if you'll excuse me saying so.
Not like I am now. No,
you had to have your hair cut. Were you
back in those days, I had hair. Have you noticed that as you get older, sort of hair grows in places where it shouldn't?
Oh, yeah.
And it doesn't grow where it should.
Oh,
You're doing all right, you've got a lot, but you're young.
Yeah.
Oh yes, so yes, lose weight. Yeah, so Harry Saltzman. I'll get there. The name of the pills. Harry Saltzman and Cubby Broccoli were the producers, and Cubby called me and said, "Roger, Roger, you're our Bond." Yes, Cubby. He said, "But Harry thinks you're a little overweight, so you could take some weight off." So I took myself to the gym for 2 or 3 hours a day. I starved myself, and I gradually. Then Harry calls me and says, "Cubby says your hair's too long," and I kept having my hair cut. In the end, I said, "Why don't you get just a thin, bald man?" And we could have all been happy, and I wouldn't have had to suffer. But it was good for me. In those days, I had a 34 or 36-inch waist and a 45-inch chest. Now I got a 54-inch waist and a 33-inch chest.
Wheels with the Wind. Actually, you mentioned being a thin, balding Bond. As I remember, of course, we had Sean Connery played Bond. Were you expecting to be shoehorned straight into the role when he gave up before George Lazenby came along?
Well, because they were the bad old days when I was doing The Saint, and I had more money than sense, and I used to gamble. I shouldn't say anything against gambling because it's a lovely pastime. But anyway, I met Harry and Cubby, the producers, around the gaming tables, looking like James Bond, I suppose. It wasn't deliberate. There was no way I could do Bond because I was doing The Saint and I was going to do it for any number of years.
So you think that they had an idea in their mind in some future time to cast you maybe in that role?
Yeah, they did. They asked me, after Sean started getting restless after 3 or 4, and they approached me. And they had a script that took place in Cambodia, and all hell broke loose in Cambodia, and so that film was shelved. And by that time, I had gone off, and then I was making The Persuaders with Tony Curtis, and then Sean, during that period, had come back after George Lazenby, and then he said, "The name is Bond. James Bond," for the last time.
And then you stepped in and said?
I said, my name is Bond. Charlie.
You've actually, over the years, again, before we turn over to the guests for their questions, you've taken a lot of indifferent press about your eyebrow.
Yes.
Has it been a good eyebrow to you through your career?
Well, the weight's sort of slipping down and pulling down, and so it doesn't lift as high as it used to. No, but it was my joke. You get asked a lot of questions on interviews, and they're always about to attack me for my no talent. And I'd say, well, I have a number of expressions. Eyebrow up, left eyebrow up, right eyebrow up, and eyebrows down.
Well, it stood you in very good stead over those years.
Stuck with me. I'm known as the eyebrow.
Yeah, actually, the eyebrow's not a bad moniker to have over the years. You did mention The Persuaders. Did it do well in the States? Does any of our American friends remember The Persuaders with Tony Curtis? Oh, great. Again, very tongue-in-cheek kind of series.
It was a flop in America. Mm. It was big everywhere else in the world, and the problem was that ABC had paid quite a lot of money for it, and they put it on against the NBC and CBS's top shows, and so it was very difficult to break in, and especially with me.
Yeah, I see the point, yeah. But you did well in the UK. What was your big break in the States then? What do you think his big break in the States was? Who remembers? The Saint was the Maverick?
Beauregard. Beauregard Maverick. They were good. You see, I was lucky. I was getting to ride horses, except I did another series called The Alaskans. And that we shot on the back lot at Warner Brothers in Culver City, where it was 120 degrees without any shade, and I had to run around in a parka, great big fur boots, and I had a dog sled team that came from Sun Valley or Snow Valley or Squaw Valley or somewhere like that, and they had to pull the sled that was on little rollers, and I was taught to say mush and ha mush and g mush. Mush is go ahead, g mush is left, ha mush is right. Well, we started shooting on a stage that was sort of ramps and lots of artificial snow, cornflakes, and I mushed the dogs, boom, and off they went. And the lead dog got to the first tree, and and all the dogs took it in turn to do that. And I'm going, please, mush, mush, and cracking the whip. The dogs didn't know that the trees were nailed down to the stage. They weren't real. Nothing was real. But it was real sweat in that costume.
As you've had kind of action roles, most of your career has been the action roles. Any accidents? Are you accident prone on stage, on theatres, in films?
Yes, I've been sort of reasonably lucky. I've never broken anything really bad, except my heart.
Aww.
No,
sorry.
yeah, you get a lot of bruises, but that goes with the territory.
Yeah.
But then they have a lot of people that look uncannily like you, and they can do it. And so,
God bless the stunt doubles.
Cut. Double in.
Double in. And just moving all the way, of course, up to almost the present. As you know, a Knight of the Realm, Sir Roger Moore, knighted for your work with UNICEF.
Mm-hmm.
That's obviously something very close to your heart. How did you become involved in UNICEF?
20 years ago, Audrey Hepburn, who we were neighbours in Switzerland, she called me and said, would I come to Amsterdam and co-host the Danny Kaye International Children's Awards with her, and which was for UNICEF, and it was just listening to Audrey and her passion and her absolute eloquence on the subject of children and their problems. And I wanted to learn more, and the only way I could learn more was actually to say I would like to go out into the field, which meant I had to sign a contract. It's a very lucrative contract. I get $1 a year, tax-free, and now my wife knows about it. Well,
That's it. That would have gone.
There goes 50 cents.
And UNICEF keeps you presumably even now very busy?
Yes, we were last in Kazakhstan, but I do a lot of awareness programs and a lot of fundraising. The fundraising is hard work.
I bet.
But I look pathetic, and I'm not ashamed to hold out the begging bowl. No, you tell people the problems facing the children in the world, and what I learned at the beginning with the statistics. And I hate statistics because they're boring. They're just black and white. And it was 40,000 children die a day of preventable causes. And that, I must say, over the years that I've been with UNICEF, has come down to 22,000. But 22,000 children dying every day. It doesn't make headlines. If there's an earthquake, yes. If there's a tsunami, yes. But the fact that children, because they're denied access to safe drinking water, to education, to medication, to nets against mosquitoes, they die. And many die in childbirth. One of the other things that I've become a spokesperson for with UNICEF is IDD. Does anybody know what IDD means? It's iodine deficiency disorder. And we need in our lives 1 teaspoonful of iodine, just spread out over our entire life. And a woman pregnant who does not have iodine will, if she goes the full term, have a child that's more, will have, if it is not suffering with dwarfism, will certainly have an IQ that's 12 to 14% below the norm, which means that I've been to countries where there is a lack of iodine and the whole country doesn't have sufficient, and the IQ of that country is very low, and they don't make a mark in the world. They can't trade, they can't sell things. So that's what I have to speak about as one of the things.
Well, obviously something very close to your heart, very passionate about that for the last 20 years.
Yeah, but very difficult to sell, because today we all know that we think that salt is iodized, and people don't even really understand why it's iodized. But there are many countries in the world where there is salt that is not iodized, and our job is to try at UNICEF is to encourage those countries to legislate to make sure that salt is iodized.
I'm sure you inspire many people to maybe take a check on the UNICEF websites and see the kind of work they do, and maybe if you can to support it. Well, Sir Roger, we've had a very brief chat now about your amazing career from the 40s all the way through, continuing to work as an actor, which is in itself no doubt a feat to be working from the 40s right through to the 2000s.
Yeah, it's working rather slowly.
There's nothing wrong with working at your own pace. We will have some of our, if we can bring the house lights up, we have activity manager Chris and some of our staff wandering around with microphones. They don't hear the question, do forgive me if I repeat your question. Of course, not just for Sir Roger, but so everyone can then hear your question, and then everyone will understand what the answer is. We will have people wandering around. We'll start right down the front here. I see your hand going up. Yes, sir, your question.
Sir Roger, I noticed that you look pretty fit, and I was wondering if you have a cute fit regime and you bring out a fitness video anytime soon.
So the question was, Sir Roger, actually, you're right. For a man of a certain age, you are looking incredibly lithe and fit. Any plans to bring out maybe a fitness video in the near future?
I'm too lazy to do it. No, I used to work out every morning for 40 or 50 minutes, sit-ups, and I never lifted weights, just pushing against your own body. And a few years ago, my back started aching rather badly, and I had to give up the sit-ups. And then my feet started aching, so I stopped the jogging on the spot. And I gradually sort of cut it down to walking to the bar.
You're looking jolly good on it.
Well, the secret is you only drink out of clean glasses.
Ah, I shall bear that in mind, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir Roger, you are timeless. I grew up with your movies, and you haven't changed a bit. You represent everything that you were then, and it's just a thrill to see you. My favorite James Bond movie was The Man with the Golden Gun. Do you have any stories that you would like to tell about?
So, any stories from The Man with the Golden Gun? Actually, mine too. That's a great movie.
Incidentally, talking about Bond movies, I noticed in the list of films that are available to play on your DVD in your suites, there's only 2 Bond films, and only one of them is mine.
We can't afford the royalties. That's what it is.
Very hurtful. But Man with the Golden Gun, yes, that was with Christopher Lee playing Scaramanga. And I'd known Christopher since 1948, when we shared a dressing room with 38 other actors. And Christopher had said to me, he was, he's 6'6", and he looked down at me and said, "If you had been in the service with me, you would have stood to attention whenever you spoke to me." Nice. So then he was the guest villain when I was doing Ivanhoe, and he was playing Otto the Hun, and Ivanhoe was having, you know Otto? No. Ivanhoe had a duel to win the freedom of his serf, and his serf was played by a 14-year-old boy from the Corona School of Acting. And we were waiting for Cloud to get out of the way of the sun, as you usually do when you're on location in England. And we're standing there, and Christopher's wearing his tabard with his great big German eagle, and he suddenly goes, "I speak steak and take laying organ." And the kid says, "Cool, you speak German?" And Christopher says, "Yes, and Spanish, and Urdu, and Portuguese, and Italian, and French, and Russian." And the kid said, "Cool." And I was thinking cool myself. But in actual fact, he has a smattering of all those languages, and he has this wonderful gift of being able to read a page and photographing it in his mind, and so you can ask him anything, and he knows everything. He's a nice guy. British Christopher Lee. And I drove him mad, by saying, "Make your eyes go red, Chris." He played that character who drank blood.
Yes, a question right there in the front.
Yes, so I was brought up on the same one of the greatest shows ever. I remember you when they did a puppet in a spitting image of yourself. How did you feel when you saw yourself as a puppet on television?
So we had the famous series called Spitting Image, very much a satirical thing, of course, with puppets. You featured quite prominently in Spitting Image, as I remember. How did you feel?
Well, it's flattered that they know who you are. In fact, I thought the puppet was less wooden than me. But going back to Christopher Lee, when we were doing the first shot in Thailand, on this little island, PP Island, in the Gulf of Siam, which has become now the Bond Island, 007 Island, but it was absolutely nothing, just like a ridge of sand and a cave formed by a natural rock overhang. And Scaramanga leads the way into his headquarters inside the cave, which are actually on stage 24 at Pinewood Studios. But that's the magic of movies. And as we walk in for the first time into the cave, 1,000 bats came out of the cave. And Christopher, without a hesitation, said, "Back! Stanislaw, not now." And then he looked down at me and he said, "You're going to use that against me." I said, "Yes."
Oh, you have a question right down there in the front.
What would you say when you played Bond was the hardest part when you first had the job to do Bond? What did you grapple with in that?
Oh, so as Bond, not just the hardest role, the hardest movie, but as Bond, what was the hardest thing to grapple with as the character of Bond? Did you struggle with characterizing that?
Leading ladies.
And you had many.
Yes, that's...
As they say.
Yes. You rephrase that.
Yes, you acted with many.
Yeah, no. Most of them were very nice ladies.
Most of them. That means one or two weren't. Tell us more, Sir Roger.
No, if you can't say something nice about anybody, you shouldn't say it.
Well, if you list them all and then just list the ones that were nice, we can make our own assumptions.
You're cunning.
Yes. That's how I got the job. Right down here on my left.
That Di was my favourite character, and I sort of think that Sean Connery could hold a candle to you. But my real question is, I thought you added a lot of humour to the role, and I wondered if it was your idea to do that, or was that having got...
Oh, excellent idea. Compared to George Lazenby and Sean Connery, you added quite some humour to the role of Bond. Was that your idea, or did that come from the directors, producers?
Well, it was basically because as I said before, I don't think he's a real spy. And it's a load of fun. It's absolute nonsense. I always know I'm going to win because the script says so. My worry is sort of, have they put enough sweat on my brow, and has my hair gone out of place?
Die another day. There was one right at the back there. Chris has the microphone.
Yes, I've got a kind of three-parter. Number one, which of your stunts which of the stunts did you do yourself? Did you actually drive that ejector seat car? And have you got one?
Have I got one what?
Very good question. We'll see later. So did you ever get injured? Did you do your own stunts, of course? Did you ever drive that, I think it was a DB5, the one with the ejector seat? And do you own an Aston Martin DB5?
No, I don't own one. I wish I did. I never drove an Aston Martin in the Bond series. That was the Scots fellow. What was the other part?
And did you do any of your own stunts, or were they all stuntman?
Yes, I kissed the leading ladies.
That was tough. It must be, Alan, right down there, it must be a very, very tough life for you, Sir Roger, to be kissing all those lovely ladies.
Yeah.
Well, someone has to do it. We have a question just over there with Alan.
Yes. What was your favorite location doing the Bond movies, where you shot the location?
The question of all the Bond movies, your favourite location?
Oh, I think The Spy Who Loved Me was the film I liked doing best. And we shot in Sardinia to start with, which was absolutely beautiful. We stayed at this wonderful hotel, the Cala del Volpe. And then we off to Egypt, and despite the heat and the flies, I loved Egypt. It was fascinating to be in the temples of Karnak and to be able to film around the pyramids, and it was lovely. Absolutely lovely.
You have managed to get to places that other people just aren't allowed to get to. That must be a real thrill.
Well, there are places that are wonderful to look at, like the Iguazu Falls, which drop thousands of feet, but there's no access by vehicle, and so you have to walk, and you had to climb down into the valley, and we all shared carrying parts of camera equipment and everything else, and then climb up, and then at the top, you see clouds of mist coming up as the water rushes over the falls, and they are magnificent to look at. And I had, in the beginning of shooting, we were shooting on the stage in Paris, and I had to follow a girl who is going to lead me to whoever the villain's headquarters are, and I forget what her name was. I think I used to call her Olga Oinka, and she had cross eyes. One looked right, and the other looked left at the same time. And Louis Gilbert says, Roger, you've got to follow her very tight along the edge of the... I said, but she's cross-eyed, she's going to go straight over. He said, we'll tie a rope round your ankle. Bless her heart.
Lovely
She didn't
leading
go
lady.
over the edge.
A question right there, madam?
Yes, I'm interested to know, apart from the movie and television career, if you also have an extensive background in theatre.
Apart from your extensive movie and TV career, do you do any theatre?
Well, I started off in the theatre, and I've done a number of plays touring. The last, I can't think what the last play was. I get rather nervous about. Oh yes, I was the guest star in. What was the name of it, Danny? The play What I Wrote. So I did a lot of performances of that in England and in Ireland and in America on Broadway, where I was. And it was wonderful. It didn't matter if I couldn't remember anything. Today I'm absolutely petrified. I also have a leg that shakes. And while I was doing the play in New York, there's a rather strenuous dance routine, and the character I played is dressed in a big skirt with an underskirt and a big wig, Marie Antoinette. And there's a song and the thing, and at the end of it, I have a line to say, and it was a matinee in New York, and Christine was sitting in front as she watched every performance, because she doesn't trust me, out of her sight. And I don't remember what happened, except I know that I was supposed to say something, and all I heard was bang, which was my head hitting the stage, and I blacked out, and I heard this sound like the rushing and roaring of the water coming in, which was the audience murmuring, and then the curtain coming down. And then I was sort of got up, and are you okay? And I couldn't think why Hamish, the actor in the scene with me, was saying, "Are you all right?" I thought, what's he doing in my bedroom? I had no idea where I was. And I finished the play, and Christina has insisted that a doctor came. Well, they sent paramedics, and I was sort of hoisted down spiral staircase to an ambulance and taken off, and within 24 hours I had a pacemaker put in, which still ticking. You've got one too. Yeah. Make sure the wife doesn't use second-hand batteries.
7 years as Bond and no accidents. You go to one Broadway theatre and you end up with a pacemaker.
Exactly.
Amazing. There's a question right down here in the front, I believe.
You have a wonderfully smooth voice. Did you develop that for the theatre, or is this your natural voice?
So is that your natural voice, Sir Roger, or is that a made-up voice? Did you develop that over the years?
I went to RADA, the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, and there I suppose they iron out any flaws you might have in your speech. And although I'm a Londoner, I got cuffed around the ear as a child if I said ain't or I didn't pronounce something properly. And I always had to be the one who read the lesson, and I sort of was the... Yes, I had a lovely voice when I was young. But it was really knocked out. Anything that was... I may have been slightly American when I was at RADA.
We all were at one stage in our life. Right down the front.
Sir Roger, did you ever have your portrait painted?
Have you ever... Very good question. Have you ever had your portrait painted?
Yes.
And was it like your role, James Bond?
So was it a personal portrait, or was it a character, like a Bond or a Swader's portrait?
It was done for Bond, Commander Bond. First portrait I had, I was Lear, King Lear, made up to look like King Lear, and Dory Sharry, who was the head of MGM then, his wife was a painter, portrait painter, and she painted me, and I am hung.
I beg your pardon? If you would please rephrase that, Sir Roger.
I am well hung in this.
That's more like it.
In a university in somewhere in America.
Down the front. If anyone at the back, of course, wishes, just raise your hand. We have our staff there will come around with a microphone. We have one of them.
Yeah, the people that are raising a hand for a drink.
Yes.
So, Roger, any new films to look forward to?
Anything in the future, or are you now concentrating just on UNICEF?
No. I love to work. My wife particularly likes me to work, not because I have to leave the house, it's because I earn a couple of bob. But I was in February, March this year in Romania, in Bucharest, making a film which will be out in America for Christmas. It's called Christmas at, I think it's going to be called Christmas at Castleberry. And I get to play my age, a duke who has two grandchildren he's never seen in America, and he invites them over to spend Christmas with him. It's a family film. It was while I was I'm so emotional. While on the penultimate day of filming, I was walking from one room in the house where we were filming, and I tripped over a cable, an electric, big electric lamp cable, and 3 Romanians very kindly leapt to catch me, to stop me falling, and they all went down with me. And one of them, weighing about 250 pounds, landed on my ankle, which is still swollen. I'm suffering, but I don't complain. And the other one dropped across my stomach and displaced a catheter that I had inside, to be technical, in my ureter. That's the bit the inside from the kidney to the bladder, because I had some stones that wouldn't pass, and I'd had lithotripsy, where they hammer it, fortunately under anaesthetic. And so that was left in there to make the exit of the stones easier. Well, they shifted that, which again blocked the kidney. And so I was on the verge of septicemia. And for the second time in the first 2 months of this year, I was ambulanced to hospital and emergency surgery. By the way, I'm a hypochondriac.
You need to go back to playing Bond. It was safer.
Yeah. And in fact, my book, which was called My Word Is My Bond, I have a new one coming out next year called Bond on Bond, because it's the 50th anniversary of Bond. So I'm going to cash in on...
I should think so too.
So where were we? Oh, yes. At the end of my first book, which is not in the library, I noticed.
Someone has it out reading it, I'm sure.
I do. I thank about 20 doctors. And somebody says, why do you thank all your doctors at the end of the book? I said, that's not all of them. Because I am a hypo.
Nothing wrong with that.
Well, no, a hypochondriac, somebody who thinks they're sick. I know I'm sick.
Actually, my niece at the back had a question which she's far too embarrassed to ask you, so I will in her place. She has just seen a brand new movie, a cartoon movie called Cars 2, and Michael Caine is voicing one of these cartoon characters. Does that appeal to you, to maybe to do a voiceover for cartoons?
Yes, I've done it for a few. And, oddly enough, my work career started as an animated cartoonist and diagram artist.
Wow. That wasn't in the notes I got.
Well,
Magnificent.
Nobody talks about it. I wasn't very good.
That's probably why.
So I became an actor. What's your next question?
Tony.
Any other questions?
Tony.
Of course, any at the back. Oh, I heard a voice. Oh, Emma has one.
Thank you very much for many, many hours of great movies that I've enjoyed watching over and over. Other than Sir Roger Moore, who is your favorite James Bond?
Oh.
Well, obviously, Sean started the whole ball rolling, and it was his success that helped make the series continue. He was the best Bond. I liked Daniel Craig very much. I didn't like the last Bond film. I thought it was a bit too violent. But Daniel Craig is a wonderful athlete, apart from being a damn good actor. I hate him.
They did have a vote. The industry did have a vote a few years ago, and 63% of all the people voting said you were the best Bond.
Well, there were only 100,
You got a
and I
point.
have 63 relatives.
Point taken. Any other questions? Don't forget, if you're at the back, we have one right in the middle.
Who was your favorite Bond girl?
Ooh. Who was, Sir Roger, your favourite Bond girl?
Well, you see, that's a question I can't answer because my wife is here. No, I can't answer because if I say so and so, the others, if it gets in the press, will say, "Well, what was wrong with me? Why is he pick?" Say they're nice. As I don't say who I didn't get on with, I don't say who I did get on with. But I might add that Maud Adams did too. She was the only actress who came back for two.
Was there any of the Sean Connery Bond girls that you would quite fancy having a romp in the surf with? Excuse me for asking. I just thought I'd ask. There's only you and I in the room. They're not listening.
Goodness gracious me. I don't, that's too indelicate a question.
Oh, I've got
Surprised.
much more indelicate questions than that, Sir Roger. Much more. So, yes, sir, right down the front.
Who takes the mickey out of you, Sir Roger? Everybody takes the mickey out of Michael Caine, you think all the time, or Sean Connery?
So, of the other friends and the stars, does anyone do an impression of you? Any of your friends do a good Sir Roger impression?
I've never heard any. I've heard impressions of me. I'm rather difficult to do because, you have to talk like that. My name. No, Michael Caine's a good friend of mine, but Michael doesn't. Michael doesn't do me.
He hasn't got the voice. Any other question? Don't forget, if you're around the back or the side of the room, just raise your arm, and we do have staff coming around. I did state at the very beginning, if anyone came in maybe after I began, that Sir Roger Moore is on vacation. He was so kind and so thoughtful to offer to do this for us, which is an absolute treat, I'm sure, certainly for me and all the staff on board, from the captain down. We've had a chance to meet Sir Roger in and around the vessel. And of course, I'm sure this is the kind of thing you will be telling all your family and friends about for a very, very long time. This kind of thing does not happen every day on every ship. And so, Roger, we are absolutely thrilled that you agreed to do this. Ladies and gentlemen, Sir Roger Moore.
Thank you.